All right. I want to welcome you to the broadcast. Welcome you to the live broadcast. Bishop T.D. steps down as senior pastor. All right. So we're gonna get into this right away, but let me make sure. I'm trying something new. Okay, so on my YouTube and all of this. So uh, first of all, let me make sure the broadcast is looking good on the other end. All right, so let me try to confirm that. Uh, all right, just be patient with me. We're gonna get into the conversation. All right, so the broadcast is looking pretty good. There is something going on in the background that I don't like, but I'm gonna go ahead with the broadcast. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead with the broadcast, and then whatever is going on, I'll fix that later. All right, I'll fix that later. But anyways, so the conversation is going on, and what I wanted to do was, this is breaking news. All right, this is breaking news. See, Bishop Jakes is stepping down as the senior pastor of Potter's House. All right, Potter's House in Dallas, Texas. So that is what we're going to be analyzing. All right, I'm going to share quite some perspectives. All right, so let me see. I'm trying to time myself here. All right, but we're going to get into the conversation right away. All right, so let me see what my time is. 11:44, 12:40, 12:40. All right. Okay, so from the very start, I'm going to play for you uh a little bit of clip. All right, a little bit of clip. All right, I will not play too many clip, too much of the clip from Bishop Jakes. Okay, because uh, anyways, I'm not gonna go into that. But yeah, all right. So I'm just gonna play a little bit of clip that will give you an overview. All right, that will give you an overview, and then we will get into the analysis proper. All right. But I want us to be patient and let us be as objective as possible. I'm looking forward to you hitting the like button. All right, hitting the like button to keep the video going on the algorithm, and looking forward to engaging you guys. Okay, I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers, but we can do this as a community. Okay, we can do this as a community. This is like a community discernment. Okay, this is like a community discernment. It's a community analysis. So from maybe our understanding of scriptures and ecclesiology, in other words, the theology of the church, all right, and how the church is supposed to go in a way that honors God, in the way that honors Jesus, in a way that is consistent with the first century church, all right, and all of those things. So I'm looking forward to your own perspectives. Okay, looking forward to your comments. All right, and like I said, I don't have all the answers. All right, so if I say something you don't agree with, all right, you can drop that in the comment. Okay, so that in a community like this, we would learn to agree to disagree in a way that is effective. Okay, we would learn to agree to disagree in a way that is effective. Okay, so very soon, like I said, I'm going to open this up with a clip from Bishop Jakes himself. All right, just speaking about the fact that, and he actually clarified that since November of 2024, the daughter Sarah Jakes and her husband Pastor Toure, that they have actually been running the church. All right, so they have been running the church from November 2024, but it is just this past Sunday, that he has started making it officially known. All right, and then he said, Bishop Jakes said, and you're going to hear from the horse's mouth in a little bit, but Bishop Jakes also clarifies that, in the upcoming anniversary of the church, all right, I don't know when the church anniversary is, all right. I'm not a member of Potter's house, all right. All right. So anyway, but he clarified that in the upcoming anniversary of the church, he is hoping that that is when they're actually going to do the official, handing over ceremony, all right, if you like, all right. So, but basically, he says it has been, Pastor Sarah Jakes and Roberts and Pastor Ture Roberts that have actually been running the church, all right. And so you guys already know that he actually had an heart attack, all right. He had an heart attack in the pulpit last year, all right. So since that time, it has really been. But anyway, we're going to go into the analysis, but let's just start with a little bit of the video, and we'll go into the analysis. All right. So I will allow the video to play a little bit so that it really gives you a context. All right. And actually the analysis is going to be at least 50% of the video. All right. So as much as I allow his video to play, that is just how much the analysis is going to go on. All right. But let's get it started, and let's hear from Bishop Jakes himself. All right.
You all know for years I have been talking about it. It may not work out the way I plan it, but I get on my knees and pray, and I plan my life in decades. How many of you remember me saying that? Not days, but decades. Because major moves take time. It may look like it was suddenly, but you don't know what the background work was. About 6 years ago, I started talking to Pastor Torre and Pastor Sarah because I did not want all that I had spent my life and your life and our lives building to get old and go with us. This is a generational. And even though she was busy doing Woman Evolved and he was busy pastoring One LA, about 4 years ago, they moved out here just in time for COVID. God has a sense of humor. What you gotta understand is it's knowing when to let go. Now there's some other things that I was trying.
All right. So we're going to continue with the video, but Bishop Jakes is just giving us a background, letting us to understand that this is something that has been in the works. All right. This is something that has been in the works. He's giving us the background to let us know that just before the start of COVID, all right, just because, and he even said that for about 6 years ago, all right, he had already started having this conversation, with Pastor Ture, all right, and the daughter about this transition, all right, this transition. And so what we are talking about here really is leadership succession, all right? And Bishop Jakes is giving us the backdrop to let us know that as far as his succession is concerned, and we know that is really a big issue, all right? Succession is a big issue even in the scriptures, all right? Even in the scriptures, all right? So we see all of that. We see leaders, all right, succeeding leaders, all right? We saw Moses, and Moses being succeeded and all of that, all right? So the Bible is really big on that, all right? So it is the idea of leadership succession, all right? And within the course of the analysis, I'm really going to throw in some of my perspectives, all right, about succession. I'm not really going to be too biblical, but I'm just going to bring it to modern day reality, all right? Maybe we look at Bishop T.D. Jakes is running a mega church, all right? It's a mega church. And we can look at some other mega ministries, all right? And see successions that have been done in a way that is similar to Bishop Jakes. And we also look at maybe another succession. Maybe so let's just look at maybe one succession that has been done in the way Bishop Jakes has done it. And we look at another succession, all right, in a multi-million dollar ministry, all right, just as big as Bishop Jakes, all right, and look at that succession that has been done in a way that is completely different from the way Bishop Jakes is doing his own, all right. So this is really going to be exciting, all right. This is going to be interesting, okay. This is going to be interesting. But anyway, so Bishop Jakes is laying for us the groundwork. He's giving us the backdrop, all right. So let's keep going. Let's keep going with this a little bit, all right. Let's keep going at this a little bit, and let's hear a little bit more from Bishop Jakes, okay? A little bit more from Bishop Jakes.
You all know for years, seen too many men build something and stay so long that they kill what they build. What you gotta understand is it's not so important that you just know when to grab a hold. It's knowing when to let go. Now, there's some other things that I'm assigned to do, both here and outside. But I cannot afford, especially after November, to risk something happening to me and you be sheep without a shepherd. I cannot afford to let all the work of all the saints living and dead to hold this so tight, so long that I wither away. So I'm suggesting to you, I'm recommending to you that you receive Pastor Torre and Pastor Sarah Come on, come on, come on. Come on. This is legacy. Not because they're kin, but because they're the kind. They've immersed themselves into the DNA of this church for years. Sit quiet, preach. What you didn't know from November forward, they've been running the church anyway. Some things I like about it, some things I don't. The world is changing. Now at ILS, our theme was the changing of the guard. I'm thinking probably.
So one of the things that Bishop Jakes is mentioning is that the his daughter and the husband of his daughter, he's saying that they are taking over the church not because of Cain, but because of kind. All right. So he's saying basically the succession in the leadership is not because of kinship. It's not because of kinship. It's not because of the daughter is his biological daughter. All right. So his argument that he's making is that this is not by virtue of kinship, all right? It's not by virtue of blood, but he's saying this succession is by virtue of qualification, is by virtue of, I mean, who is the right person, all right? And it was Reinhard Bonke, all right? Reinhard Bonke, some of you know him, all right? And I'm trying to do my analysis, from a global perspective, all right? From a global perspective. And a lot of you that would be watching this video, a lot of you are Americans, all right? And sometimes I know, some Americans are not really, even American Christians. There are some American Christians that are not really interested in what is going on in the global church, all right? Some Americans are just really, really American, all right? But anyway, so of course, I'm an American too, okay? But I consider myself as a global citizen, okay? So even when I do this analysis, I want to do it from a global perspective, all right? And so that is why when I'm going to be contrasting Bishop Jakes' method of leadership succession with two other ministries, like multi-million dollar ministries, just as Bishop Jakes, all right? I've been to the Potter's house, all right? I've seen how massive the Potter's house is in South Dallas, all right? South Dallas, all right, in Texas. So I've seen it. It's basically what it is. It's a multi-million dollar ministry, okay? And so when I'm going to be doing this comparison, all right, in terms of leadership succession from Bishop Jakes, I'm going to even compare him, all right, to other multi-million dollar ministries, okay, mega ministries, all right. If I would use that term, all right, mega ministries, mega churches, all right, mega evangelistic ministries. So I'm going to be doing that comparison, all right. So maybe those ministries, all right, but those ministries are not typical, they are not basically American ministries, all right. These are ministries overseas, okay. So and what I'm trying to really encourage here also as a community is just the globalization of hermeneutics, all right, the globalization of hermeneutics, the globalization of interpretation, the globalization of analysis. All right, that's really what I'm trying to push for. All right, and so as a global citizen, a lot of the videos I'll be doing on this platform, I'll be bringing in some global perspectives. All right, and mostly they may be religious. All right, but I'll be looking at it also not only from the American perspective, of course. I understand it, all right, from a typical American perspective, me being an American too, okay? But also, coming from Africa or all right. So at some point, some people may like my analysis. At some point, some people may not like my analysis. Okay, but I want you to hear my heart out. All right. I just want to come here and share from an objective perspective. All right. And a lot of the things I'll be doing here, whenever I'll be analyzing religious breaking news. All right. Religious breaking news, breaking news that has to do with the world of spirituality. All right. Whenever I want to do this analysis, all right, even if I love the leaders, all right, about whom the news is breaking, all right, or even if I love the ministries, but also, to every pluses, there are minuses, all right, to every advantages, there are disadvantages. So even the ministries I may love, they may have, as much as they have their advantages, they may have their disadvantages. And by virtue of objectivity, I want to look at their advantages as well as their disadvantages. On the other hand, by virtue of objectivity, I want to look at their pluses on one hand, but also look at their minuses on the other hand. All right. And so I really want to invite, you guys also in that journey of objectivity, okay? Because at the end of the day, for me, I'm serving my conscience, okay? I'm serving my conscience. I don't really believe in putting people and institutions on the pedestal, all right? I don't really believe in that, all right? I don't really subscribe to that. I honor people. I have a lot of respect for people, all right? I honor the legacy of people and all of that, all right? So I'm just giving you guys this as a kind of backdrop, all right? A kind of backdrop, so you understand the angle from which I'm coming, the angle from which I'll be making my analysis, all right? And you may see some of my videos, maybe being tough on somebody, and maybe another video being nice on the person, all right? So that is how objective I want us to be, all right? And don't cancel me out. Don't cancel me out, because there are people who actually believe in canceling people, all right? Just because they are not objective, all right? So sometimes people may cancel, those of us that are trying to discuss things in an objective way, simply by virtue of their own lack of objectivity, all right? Because maybe if I'm talking about somebody that you have put on the pedestal, all you want to hear is the pluses of the person, the good things about the person, the mountaintop experiences of the person, all right? And the moment I begin to talk about the valley low experiences about the person, when I begin to talk about the minuses of the person, people who are not objective, all right? People who are not objective viewers, objective listeners, at such a time, they may want to cancel me, all right? But I believe really in objectivity. I believe in objectivity, and I believe it's a biblical principle, all right? It's just a biblical principle to just be honest, to just be truthful, all right? The Bible says, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things. Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, all right? So, giving you that backdrop, let me play a little bit more of Bishop Jake's video, all right? Let me get the video out of the way, and then I'll begin to really go into the analysis proper, all right? Into the analysis more proper. But let me just do a little bit more of the video.
This is legacy. Not because they're kin, but because they're the kind. They've immersed themselves into the DNA of this church for years. Said quite some things I like about it, some things I don't. The world is changing. Now at ILS, our theme was the changing of the guard. I'm thinking probably about the church anniversary, we're going to formalize. But I wanted to introduce to you your pastors. is heavy. But I also know that if God is for you, who can be against you? And as long as I can, I'll be somewhere in the shadows, on the stage, wherever you need me, to make this vision come to pass. What say ye to this moment?
All right, now that's an interesting moment. This is an interesting moment, all right, because in this moment, this is also, and I'm going to be doing an analysis on this, okay? But this is where we're going to understand actually how the leadership structure is going to be, all right? So basically, when this handing over is officially done, all right, it is actually going to be Sarah, all right? Sarah, the daughter of Bishop Jakes. She's the one that is going to be the senior pastor, all right? And then her husband is going to be the co-senior pastor, all right? So take note of that. We're going to discuss that in the analysis, all right? And that also becomes a little bit controversial, all right? It becomes a little bit controversial because that is going to bring us to the issue of egalitarianism versus complementarianism, okay? Egalitarianism versus complementarianism, okay? So egalitarianism is actually people that believe that a woman can be like a senior pastor, you know, like a woman can be a pastor, can be a senior pastor. So the people that hold on to those or that theology, they are known as egalitarians, all right? And yes, and then the complementarians, they are basically the ones that believe that, you know, women can do leadership here and there, but when it comes to being a pastor of a flock, and all of that, you know, the the complementarians, they believe that a woman is not supposed to play that role, all right? And so, but it is interesting, okay, actually to know that, all right, it is Sarah. Sarah is going to be the senior pastor. I mean, even though she's a pastor, her husband is a pastor, all right, they are a family, all right, but, you know, when they took over the potter's house, Sarah is going to be the lead senior pastor, the lead pastor or the senior pastor, whichever title you prefer, that's fine. And then the husband is going to be the co-lead senior pastor or the co-senior pastor, all right? So take note of that, but let's hear it from the horse's mouth, and then we'll go into analysis proper, all right?
It's hard. I think we can all agree that this isn't exactly how we saw my life painting out. I saw my parents sacrifice their lives for this church. I saw them give their bodies and their strength. And I know you guys are so tired. You had a heart attack on stage. But then God showed me that you all didn't always know if you had what it took either. But that God gave you GPS to find what it took to stand up to the assignment. believe that the same God that has ordered your steps to find what it took to stand up in any given moment is going to order our steps to find what it takes to stand up to whatever's on the other side of this. Yes. My commitment to you and our commitment to you is that we will seek God every step of the way, that we will pay the price to lead this community, and that we will make decisions not just with you in mind, but with the people who haven't even come into this room in mind. I believe that collectively that we could turn this city upside down and right side up, and that what happens in Dallas will overflow and saturate the state of Texas. And when the state of Texas can't hold it anymore, Oklahoma, get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. And when Oklahoma gets to the overflow, you better move over Nevada. I believe that this nation will be changed by the collective anointing, not just because of what we carry, but because of what we carry in unity and collectively. And so I am asking that you would bring your oil into this room, that you would bring your vision into this room. And if you're nervous like me or anxious like me, that's okay. Because together we'll do it in strength. There was this moment when Mary Magdalene was at the tomb and found out that it was empty. And the angel of the Lord came to her and said, "What you're looking for, he's not here, he's risen." And he gave her a message to go and tell the disciples. And it says that she went with great fear and joy. Whenever we're moving from one season to the next, sometimes we do it with great fear because we don't know how we'll deliver the message. We don't know if they'll receive us. We don't know whether or not we'll be ready. We don't know what God's going to do in that season. But what God has highlighted to me is the great joy part. And I believe that we can do this with not just fear and respect and honor, but that we can do this with radical joy. Because you all have gone ahead of us and made our crooked path straight. And you have been a good shepherd and a good steward. And what you have placed in the earth will not fail. But generation after generation after generation will declare the works of the Lord. Thank you for letting us build this on your shoulders. As your pastor-elect, co-pastor, co-senior pastor-elect, I'm grateful. I'm honored. As your daughter, I'm so happy you will surrender.
All right. So you got that from the horse's mouth. All right. So basically, Sarah, as she already mentioned, she's going to be of course, for now, she is the senior pastor elect, and the husband is the co-senior pastor elect. All right. So that is how that is playing out. That is how that is working out. All right. So because I was curious, like, well, how is this going to work out? All right. And also knowing the kinship, the family implications. All right. The family implications of usually these multi-million dollar ministries. All right. How usually the pastors are going to hand them over, all right, to their sons or daughters, all right. And so I was kind of curious, but anyway, Sarah has made that clear for us, all right. And so I would love to hear your thoughts about that. All right. I would love to hear your thoughts about that. Whether in a situation like that, especially when, Sarah is in a pastoral role, the husband is in a pastoral role, whether it is the husband that is supposed to become the senior pastor and the wife, Sarah, becomes the lead, the co-senior pastor, or otherwise, as they have already planned it, all right, and as Sarah has already alluded to that, all right. So that is and so for those that are against women being pastors, you're going to see those analyses So from those analytical point of view, they're just going to condemn the entire process. All right, they're just going to condemn the entire process. And they're going to talk about, what are the qualifications of a bishop, all right? Or a qualification of a lead pastor or a senior pastor. So you're going to be seeing that analysis, all right? And those are all analysis, all right? But that's going to be from the people that belong to the camp of complementarianism, okay? That believe that women can do certain things in the church, but women cannot become senior pastors, all right? I don't belong to that camp anyway, all right? I don't belong to that camp. So I'm more of an egalitarian guy, all right? I'm more of an egalitarian guy, but don't throw me under the bus, all right? The Bible is so broad, and we all are not going to agree on everything in the Bible, all right? We are not going to agree on everything in the Bible. Even people that do apologetics, people that do apologetics, people that do polemics, all right? As much as they are very critical about the integrity of the word of God, the truth of the word of God, and bringing the bearing of the truth of the word of God, upon generations and so on and so forth. All right. So even with those people, though they are all apologists and they belong to the same camp, but they're also going to disagree on certain things. They are going to agree on, how the church is supposed to run. They are going to agree, on ecclesiology. Some of them are going to disagree on things like eschatology, all right, the theology of the end times, all right. Some of them maybe are even going to disagree on Trinity, all right, and all of those kind of things. So there is just a lot, all right. But even in our disagreement, we must learn to agree or disagree in a way that is effective, all right? We must agree to disagree in a way that is effective, all right? In a way that doesn't destroy really the brotherhood, all right? Because there are people, as soon as they see that you disagree with them on a single iota of theology, all right? Just like sometimes not even like primary issues like the salvation or the Trinity or things like that. Some people, it is just some strange theological issues or biblical issues, but when they see like you have a little disagreement with them, they now think you are of the devil, and they just have to cut you off. They have to cancel you. All right. So that is not a healthy approach. All right. That is not a healthy approach. And that is one of the things I really want to bring across to you guys. We must agree to disagree in a way that is effective. We must agree to disagree in a way that is healthy. So, like I said, as far as the egalitarian, complementarian divide is concerned, I am more on the egalitarian side, all right? I'm more on the side of empowering women, all right, to become everything that God wants them to become, all right? And then, but we don't have time to go deep into that right now, all right? To go deep into those scriptures, and we begin to look at, okay, if Paul said this, all right, maybe to the church of Ephesus, what was really going on in the church of Ephesus? What was really going on in the culture, and how we are the women, in the culture at that time in Ephesus, for example, how women were usurping authority in just the natural culture, and women also wanted to bring that within the church culture, all right, the first century church culture. And then we saw that against that backdrop, against the backdrop of that historicity, all right? And that will take us into hermeneutics, all right? That will take us into hermeneutics and begin to take us into really trying to exegete, the text. But we don't have time for that today, all right? We don't have time for that today. We can discuss that, all right, or maybe at another time, all right? Maybe just or go to the whole issue of women becoming lead pastors or women not becoming lead pastors, and how we can really have a discussion and an analysis, a biblical theological analysis on the whole issue of egalitarianism versus complementarianism. All right, that's something I love. All right, as a teacher of the scriptures, all right, that's something I would love to bring up and discuss someday. All right, but that is a debatable issue. All right, as far as the leadership succession of Bishop Jakes is concerned, all right, as far as Sarah becoming the lead pastor, all right. It's kind of technical, and then the husband becomes the co-lead pastor. All right, but that is what is going on over there, all right. And there are people actually that would argue that, I mean, people that don't like the Jakes at all, they would say, hey, one of the qualifications of the bishop or a senior pastor or a pastor in general, as far as the scripture is concerned, is that you must be a teacher of the Bible, and there are people that would go deep and begin to go into the casual things that Sarah Jakes have said, the ways maybe Sarah Jakes have misinterpreted scriptures. All right. So I know about those things. They are all out there, but I'm not going into that. All right. That is not the direction in which my own analysis is going. All right. But those are all options. Those are all options that are out there that people are discussing, that people are and this is the internet age. All right, this is the age of social media. All right, this is the age where people are going to be critiquing these issues, analyzing these issues, synthesizing these issues. All right, and just also doing it consistent with the Bible and the scriptures and their theological background and their theological persuasions and sensibilities and all of that. All right, so this age in which we are, and we cannot escape all of those things. All right, but that is something also, all right, that is really out there for debate. All right, and now when I look at Bishop Jakes, of course, for example, a lot of the pastors uh, uh, hand over their ministries to their children. All right, but it was Reinhard Bonke who said, uh, um, you know, it is not really by virtue of kinship. All right, it is by virtue of who is anointed for the job. All right, who is anointed for the job. All right, and so we saw, for example, Reinhard Bonke. All right, and some of you that may not know him, all right, maybe some of you American folks, all right, Africans know Reinhard Bonke. He's a household name. All right, probably uh, uh, maybe the greatest evangelist actually in the history of Africa. All right, even though he's a German, all right, even though he's a German, but at a very long age, he left Germany and he went to South Africa. So he was using South Africa as his base, all right, to really do the evangelization of Africa, all right. And so Reinhard Bonke was this guy that in a single evangelistic meeting, Reinhard Bonke would have like at least 1 million people present, in a place like Nigeria, all right, where they have those big campgrounds, all right, and Reinhard Bonke can really attract like over 1 million people in a single evangelistic crusade, all right. But, all right, so Reinhard Bonke had this ministry he called Christ for All Nations. Christ for All Nations. And the way Reinhard Bonke did his own succession, his own leadership succession, is completely different from what Bishop Jakes has done, for example. Because Reinhard Bonke also has adult children, all right? I don't know how many he has, all right, but he has adult children, okay? Maybe 3 or 4, I don't know the number, all right? So don't take my word for it. But when Reinhard Bonke was retiring, all right, from the ministry, actually he had cancer, all right? He had cancer, so he was slowing down, all right, from Africa. So he had to leave South Africa, and then he came down to Jacksonville, Florida, all right? And so when he came down to Jacksonville, Florida, there was a pastor there, all right? He was a young church planter by then, and his name was Daniel Kolenda, all right? So Daniel Kolenda had started a church. He had started a church right in Jacksonville, Florida. And, sometimes, usually as a church planter, you are usually, bivocational, all right? Especially in the United States. Usually in Africa, people just go full time, but in the United States, usually, the new church planters are bivocational. So basically, Daniel Kolenda, he's an American, all right. So Bonke is a German, Daniel Kolenda an American, a Caucasian, okay. So Daniel Kolenda, though he was a new church planter, but he also decided to find like some kind of a part-time job. All right. And this part-time job, he saw an advert for like a warehouse worker, a warehouse worker at Christ for All Nations. All right. And so this is now, Reinhard Bonke, he now has cancer and then he's retreating, like into retirement. All right. So he comes from South Africa, he comes to Florida, all right, Jacksonville, Florida. So, but still, he kind of opens up an office, of his ministry where he will be springing forth from, maybe going back to Africa. And then, Bonke also launched a crusade, an initiative known as America Shall Be Saved, all right, something like that. America Shall Be Saved. So basically, now that he's in America, he's moving around in America, while also he's doing some work also in Africa. But anyway, so Daniel Kolenda comes as a warehouse worker, all right? Maybe moving boxes around, moving tracks around, and all of those kind of things. But anyway, somehow, I think Daniel developed a relationship with Reinhard Bonke, and then Daniel began to travel. Now he was no longer like a warehouse worker at Christ for All Nations, but he now started traveling with Reinhard Bonke to Africa, all right? Being on the platform as a co-evangelist, all right, with Reinhard Bonke and all of that. But to cut long story short, at the end of the day, when Reinhard Bonke was retiring, all right, like I said, he had adult children, maybe 3 or 4 of them. But Reinhard Bonke, at the end of the day, never handed the ministry over. And this is also, I mean, probably the biggest evangelistic ministry in the world, all right? Like the biggest evangelistic ministry in the world, all right? So, some of you may be considering Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, but hey, Christ for All Nations by Reinhard Bonke was really, really massive, all right? Really, really massive. But at the end of the day, Reinhard Bonke said, as far as leadership succession is concerned, it is not by who is appointed, but it is by virtue of who is anointed. So, in the estimation of Reinhard Bonke, he thought that maybe, comparative to his own children, adult children, and these are not little children, these are adult children anyway. All right, comparative of them to Daniel Kolenda, Reinhard actually thought that it was Kolenda, all right? He doesn't know him from Adam, all right? Only got to know him when he came, first of all, as a warehouse worker, all right, in his organization, right, in his evangelistic ministry. That's when Reinhard Bonke got to know Daniel Kolenda for the first time. But at the end of the day, Reinhard Bonke, by way of leadership succession, handed over the baton to Daniel Kolenda, long before Reinhard Bonke died, and maybe couple of years subsequently, Reinhard Bonke died. All right, and now, of course, Daniel Kolenda is now the leader of Christ for All Nations. All right, so this is in contrast to Bishop Jakes, for example. All right, or what we typically know about, wherein the leaders hand over to their biological children. All right. But Reinhard Bonke really is just the stark difference. It's the stark difference to that kind of prevailing trend, all right, in the Pentecostal charismatic churches, all right. And this is really about Pentecostal charismatic churches, because I've also seen, for example, there is a church in Minnesota, all right. What's the name of this church? Eagle Brook Church, for example, all right. Eagle Brook Church, probably the biggest evangelical church in Minnesota, all right. And I knew who the leader was, but by virtue of leadership succession, all right, when the leader handed over maybe 2, 3, or 4 years, a few years ago, when he handed over, and I don't know about his family, I don't know whether he has biological children, but I think he does. But actually, the ministry was handed over to somebody completely different, all right? Completely different, all right? So the trend of people actually handing over the churches over, and I remember also, there's also another mega church in Minnesota, all right? I don't want to mention their names, all right? But like this pastor, he was one of my professors. Actually, he was the one that taught me preaching, all right? Introduction to preaching, preaching practicum. Well, no, he did not teach us preaching practicum. He was the one, I think, that taught me intro to preaching, all right? But anyway, so he was both a professor at the seminary and also a pastor of a mega church that he founded. And about a couple of months ago, I was just doing some basic research, general research, and then I discovered that he had already retired, all right? And the person he handed over the church to was not his biological child, but somebody also just completely different, just somebody that was just one of the pastors. All right, so the trend of people handing over the churches over, it is more within the Pentecostal and charismatic circles. All right, but when you go to the Baptist churches or those other evangelical churches, all right, that trend is not prevalent. All right, or is not even is less existent or non-existent, but definitely it is not prevalent in those kind of systems. All right, and then this also brings us now to a similarity of what Bishop Jakes has done. All right, so that takes us to a church in Nigeria. All right, a church in Nigeria. Currently, they are building a facility, that's going to be seating over 100,000 people. All right, over 100,000 people. All right, so basically that is like the biggest church auditorium, the biggest auditorium church, ministry auditorium in the whole world. All right, and this church is known as Winners Chapel. All right, so Winners Chapel, for example, is preparing. They have not done their leadership succession, all right, like completely or fully yet, all right. They have not announced it. But what happened was that since the day one that the bishop, who is Bishop Oedipo, since the day one, and I'm just sharing all of these things to just see sometimes, the differences and all of that. And we're going to bring this to an end, all right. We're going to bring this to an end, but I really want to bring these interesting comparisons and contrast, all right, that would really keep you thinking, all right, and it just gives you an overview, gives you a broader idea of what is really going on in the church, all right, as a global citizen and all of that. So anyway, so when Bishop Oedipo started the church, maybe 1981, 1982, thereabout, all right, he had somebody that started with him. His name is Bishop Abioyi. All right, Bishop Abioyi for me is like a personification of loyalty. Like when you have somebody that really personifies the word loyalty, Bishop Abioyi is like that guy. So he was a guy that actually started as an assistant pastor to Bishop Oedipo, of the Winners Chapel. All right, and they have been in this for like 40 years. All right, 40 years and so on and so forth. If you do the math from 1981 to now, all right, so my math is not good. But anyway, so they have been in it for this long. But now that Bishop Oedipo is preparing for his son, all right, who is basically going to be, what is his name? David Oedipo Jr. All right, so the groundwork is laid for David Oedipo Jr. to succeed his dad. But what happened in that situation was that the bishop, who was the assistant since the very start of the ministry, I mean, like in a way that is not nice, he actually got kicked out. Like literally just got kicked out. Literally, like he like, but again in a decent, in a nice way. So they just basically said that, oh, this man is retiring, all right. But again, when you look at it, Bishop Abioyi is younger than Bishop Oedipo. But again, the guy who is elderly in age is the one that is retiring, the one that is younger in age. All right. So, I mean, like, how can you, who is more elderly in age, you are still running the church. You are still running the church. You are still preaching. You are still, I mean, just the overseer, the general overseer. And the guy who has been your assistant, who has been your second in command since 1981. All right. Now, he's the one you kick out, and then kicked out another bishop again, whose name is Bishop Aremu. All right, but all these, these guys, going into being kicked into retirement, quote unquote, is simply because Bishop Oedipo is preparing the way for his son, Bishop Oedipo Jr. But again, that is also a multi-million-dollar ministry. All right, that is the richest ministry in Africa. Of course, by my own math and by my own estimation, that is the richest ministry on the face of the planet. All right. Bishop Oedipo, I believe that he has more money than Bishop T.D. Jakes, Kenneth Copeland, all right, and all of these guys, all right. But again, this is Africa. So in Africa, you cannot really get to know the real net worth of a guy. And this guy is also conservative. He's also conservative. He doesn't live like a flashy life and all of that, all right. And so, but again, I believe that he's not only the richest in Africa, but he's the richest on the planet. All right. So anyway, so that was why at the very start I told you that I was going to compare the leadership succession in Bishop Jakes's multi-million dollar ministry to a couple of other multi-million dollar ministries. All right. So I promised I was gonna. So anyway, so yeah, so the German guy did his own succession in a completely different way, multi-million dollar evangelistic ministry, but handed it over to somebody who is not a member of the family at all right, who was just a total stranger towards the end of the ministry. All right, he came in and then he became the leader of that ministry. All right, so I have a lot of respect for Reinhard Bonke. All right, when you talk about integrity, and I did not finish playing this video. All right, but when you watch the video to the very end, you would hear Bishop Jakes saying that, "Oh, I have led this ministry with integrity." Well, now that brings us also to the issue of PDD. All right, because against the backdrop of saying you have led the ministry with integrity, people are going to talk about, but what were you doing with it, PDD? What were you doing in PDD's parties? Things like that. Were you trying to pursue more money, by just going into these ungodly friendships and ungodly relationships and things like that? All right. And you guys know that. All right. So you guys know that. And, and maybe it is all of those things that are, because when you watch the video that I played at the very start, Bishop Jakes is no longer his energetic self. All right. Bishop Jakes is no longer Bishop Jakes. Even until the time he had the heart attack in the pulpit. All right. And I think that was in November of 2024. All right. So he's no longer the same. So even today, when you watch the video, I mean, he's a little bit drowsy. All right. He's a little bit drowsy on the pulpit. All right. And Bishop Jakes is going through a lot of lawsuits. All right. There is this guy, I just forgot his name. All right, whatever his name is, but he also has a lawsuit against Bishop Jakes, saying that many years ago Bishop Jakes actually abused him. All right, so there are all of those allegations. All right, and at the end of the day, the courts, have the mandate. All right, to determine whether those allegations are true or not. Based on the evidences. All right, and stuff like that. All right. So Bishop Jakes is dealing with all of that. All right. So while he's arguing that he has led his ministry throughout these years with integrity. All right. But that is not for me to argue out. All right. You guys can put your one and one together. You guys can put the pieces of the puzzle together and feel free to share your perspectives. All right. And in that video also, Bishop Jakes acknowledged his wife. All right. He said, I've been preaching since I was 19 years old. All right. So just talking about his longevity in the pulpit. All right. And whether you like him or not, Bishop Jakes is a great communicator. All right. So maybe just working on his communication skills since he was 19, all right? And now he's an elderly person, all right? So, and I know maybe we can learn some lessons from that, all right? Whether we like Bishop Jakes or not, but we also just learning that, God has giftings on our lives. God has abilities on our lives. God has talent on our lives, all right? And we must deploy those talents, all right? Even now, all right? There is no time to waste. There is no time to waste. All right, and so we must deploy everything that God has put in us so that we can make like a credible mark on our generation. But also, considering also the virtues of holiness and sanctification, and just knowing the kind of people to mingle with. All right, I mean, one of the videos I have on my channel is Bishop Jakes literally laying hands and blessing two false prophets, like prominent false prophets from Africa. The one who is the Congolese Kenyan guy, Lovey Elias, all right, and then the Zimbabwean guy, all right, Passion Java, all right. I have that video of Bishop Jakes actually laying hands on them. I mean, like praying a blessing over them, all right. But these are notorious false prophets. These are people that have been exposed times without numbers. And even when they get opposed, they are threatening their opposers, with lawsuits, all right? So this is just how unrepentant these guys are. And then, it is actually Bishop Noel Jones, all right? Another great communicator. Whether you like Jakes or not, whether you like Jones or not, these are some of the greatest communicators in our lifetime, all right? Bishop Jakes, Bishop, just forget about just preaching. Just consider them as communicators, all right? But these are great communicators. These are orators, all right? But again, it is the same Noel Jones that is now the spiritual father of Passion Java, who is just like, I mean, he's just a terrible false prophet, all right? Just a notorious false prophet. And these are the guys, Passion Java, or Lovey Elias. These are the people that Noel Jones is giving, access to the African American community. All right, like, he's just endorsing them, he's just giving them like a moral capital. He's giving them moral capital, he's giving them capital of the media. I mean, because just imagine what Jones and Jakes represent, and they're endorsing, boys like Java and Lovey, all right? So it is all of these things that are going on, all right? And that's also another issue for analysis. And then we saw Noel Jones actually brings Lovey and Java to Jakes, and you saw, and I have the video on my platform, and you see them kneeling down, Lovey and Java kneeling down, and Jakes actually endorsing them and praying for them and releasing some so-called anointing upon like, just these are false prophets. Like, even if you have elementary discernment, even people that just have elementary discernment, they already know that these are false prophets. Even in their countries of origin, they all know that these guys are clowns. Like, Java acts like a clown. Like, literally, that's what he does. And in his country, that's the kind of reputation he has. But he comes to America, and Noel Jones is endorsing him. Noel Jones becomes a spiritual father, and Bishop Jakes is laying hands on these guys, and these guys are taking those videos and spreading them as a kind of endorsement. Like, Jakes has endorsed us. Jones has endorsed us. Benny Hinn has endorsed us, So that is how those boys are playing their game, all right? And so you are claiming on one hand that you are somebody of integrity, but again, you have all these lawsuits around you and everything, and you have your own lawsuits that you're going to fight, and the people that are trying to also amplify the messages about these lawsuits, you are also going after them, trying to pull down their channels, and all of these kind of things, all right? So, but anyway, so he says he's a man of integrity and all of that, all right? But again, I'm just giving you the facts. And you already know these facts, all right? I'm just vocalizing them, all right? And so these are all things to think about, all right? But hey, T.D. Jakes steps down, all right? He steps down. They just going to do an official ceremony, all right, in the church's anniversary sometime this year, all right? But he says even from November of last year when he had a heart attack, his daughter and her husband, Pastor Ture, have been running the church since 2024, all right? So that is my brief analysis. Drop your comments, hit the like button, and let's keep these conversations going. And as time goes on, as events unfold that are religious in nature, spiritual in nature, I'll be here. I'll bring them up. I'll surface those issues. And as a community of people, let's go into the conversation, all right? Let's have the analysis in a way that is objective, all right? And God would richly bless each and every one of us, all right? God will richly bless each and every one of us. And so Jakes acknowledges his wife, all right? And so, so I think that was, that's commendable, all right? Just the wife, just standing by his husband, all right? Whether he was not even a preacher, whether he was just even a businessman or whatever career he had, all right? But just the wife standing with him. So he just acknowledged her at the starting point. He said, hey, babe, come here. I did not get here by myself, And the wife, Serena Jakes came on stage, all right? So that was interesting to watch, all right? But just being grateful to the wife that has stood by him all these years, all right? So, and so, but I think that's a loyal wife, all right? That's a loyal woman, all right? So, yeah, so that was interesting also. That was an highlight, all right? So, God richly bless you, but let me get your comments, all right? Let me know your perspectives, all right, about these conversations, and let's keep the conversations going. For more interesting content, all right, subscribe to my channel. because there is really, really more to come. All right. So subscribe to my channel, hit the notification button so that whenever I have some more content, you will be notified. All right. And let's keep the conversation going. But that's it. That's it. Bishop Jake steps down as senior pastor of the Potter's House in South Dallas of the state of Texas. All right. So there is more we can say about that, but let us just pause here for now. All right. So there was the issue of egalitarianism versus complementarianism. There is a biblical theological issue of what really biblical succession looks like. All right. And we did not really go into that from a biblical perspective. We're not going to scriptures and all of that, but we can do that on another day, okay? We can do that on another day in a teaching session, in a discussion session, all right? But I just wanted to do like a little bit of comparative analysis between Jakes and Oedipo, who is in Africa, and I also did a contrastive analysis between Jakes and Reinhard Bonke, the German preacher who was spent much of his adult life in South Africa and touring Africa and evangelizing Africa. And then at the very tail end of his life, he came to Jacksonville, Florida, and handed over the evangelistic, multi-million dollar evangelistic ministry, not to his biological children, but he handed it to somebody that was pretty much a total stranger, all right? Until towards the end of the life of Reinhard Bonke. That's when he basically met Daniel Kolenda, all right? And Daniel Kolenda is now the one running with the vision of Christ for All Nations, CFAN. All right. So God richly bless you. Thank you for your viewership. And I'm looking forward to your comments. All right. If you disagree with me, you agree with me on anything, let's keep the conversation going in the comment section. All right. God bless and enjoy the rest of the day.